This is going to be fun. This is going to be fast-paced, and this is one of the most controversial subjects we ever cover. And I want to start right with the slide you're looking at right now. If you drove into any town and you saw that sign that said no parking either direction, what would you do? You'd say one word, next, and you're gone. So these are the rules of parking in towns, and I love some of these signs that you see right here. So we have to start off a little bit with a little levity since this is a pretty heavy subject. So public parking includes both private and publicly developed spaces, and we're going to cover the 10 things you need to know and do to make parking work for you. The very first thing I want to start with is Mythbusters, the downtown parking edition. First of all, myth: people do not like to walk. I mean, the reality, the vast majority have no problem walking a block or two. Go to any mall and look at how far they have to park. And by the way, once they walk into the entrance to the mall, how much walking are they doing when they're in the mall? That is a myth. It is not reality. Number two, if we build it, they will come. This is the field of dreams strategy, that if you build parking, people will automatically come to your downtown. The reality, parking is not an attraction. So you're going to build it because you're going to want people to spend more time in your downtown. But just because you build parking doesn't mean more people are going to come. Number three, all parking must be in front. This is totally false. They will always park where parking is provided. Many, many retailers in downtowns have parking in the rear, and it does not reduce their revenues. So you do need to make it convenient. That's the thing that you have to worry about. Here you go. Myth: everyone is entitled to free parking. This is false. Reality: every space entails a cost, whether it's curbside parking, whether it's parking structures, whether it's surface parking lots. And by the way, even at malls, you know, if it's free at a mall, then it's factored into the rents. They are paying for it, and it's passed on to the consumer always. There is no such thing as free parking. Myth: it's difficult to find parking downtown. The reality is this is rarely the case. It's usually a perception and not reality. But consider this: can people find your parking spaces? Are they easily accessible? Are they in a safe place that people don't mind parking in? And is it a pleasant experience? If you address these issues, all of a sudden they're going to say, wow, we do have parking downtown. And finally, the myth: a parking problem is a bad thing. The reality, it is quite the opposite. Every town that has parking problems should say, this is a nice problem to have. Because consider the alternative of available parking with nobody in it. What does that tell you about your downtown? So the bottom line is, some of the heaviest shopping districts in the US, Canada, and Europe have the fewest parking spaces per square foot of retail space. The most heaviest shopping district. So there you go. In the US and Canada, all have pay parking. And people are accustomed to walking 1, 2, or 3 blocks. And more than 50% get downtown by other means. There you go. More than 50% in these urban areas in the heaviest shopping districts don't even bother driving there by car. That is a trend that is coming along right now. And so here are the 10 things you need to know and do. Number one, parking does not have to be free. And I'm going to give you a case history. There's Bellevue, Washington versus Seattle. This is the Seattle versus Bellevue smackdown. And if you want to see a map of this area, you can see Seattle there. To the left of Seattle is Puget Sound. There's Lake Washington between Seattle and Bellevue. And so there's two different philosophies at work here. When we talk about Bellevue, yes, it's an urban area. Population is about 125,000. Kemper Freeman is the major developer in downtown Bellevue, and he has a philosophy that all parking is free. You know, and he pushes the city hard to make all parking free. This is downtown Bellevue. About a third of the high rises you see there are world headquarters for Microsoft Corporation. They've got, it's very urban, it's very dense, and yet they want free parking. So you can see what it's like down there and what they do. So that's what he's done there. So all the parking is free for Bellevue Square, which is the most upscale mall in the northwestern 5 states. Meanwhile, across the water is Seattle, which is 5 times the population, and their philosophy is, let's make our parking so expensive that people will be forced to get here by other means. And you have to understand something. There is no rapid transit. It means coming there by taxi or by bus. So that is their philosophy. Let's force people out of their cars. And, you know, they want to change people's lifestyle so they don't create the congestion. And so, you know, here's downtown Seattle, metropolitan area, beautiful city, and there it is. And they don't have many surface parking lots. If you look closely at this, you can see some rooftop parking, and you can see some things there. And so who's winning this debate? Bellevue. It has become the upscale dining, shopping, and entertainment hub of the Northwest. So now, does this mean that parking has to be free? No. But what it's telling you is you can't dictate people's lifestyle. You can't say we're going to force you out of your car. So what you have to do, does it have to be free? Of course not. And by the way, in downtown Bellevue during the day, all those employees that come into Microsoft and live and work there, they do pay for parking. It's free after 5 o'clock, and it's free at the mall. So does that mean that, you know, it needs to be free? No, not at all. So there are some cool things you can do to at least reduce the cost. And so here is Bellevue Square in downtown Bellevue, where parking is always free. So another cool thing, there you go, there is inside the most upscale mall in the Northwest. So there are some great ideas on ways to reduce the cost of parking or to provide it free during certain time periods. For instance, this is in Greenville, South Carolina, and they do a cool thing that sometimes they will offer the parking for free where it's normally paid on weekends. Notice that Independence National Bank is paying for the parking. So what it does, it pays the city for the revenues it would have made over the weekend to get people to park for free on weekends because they're busy during the week, and then on the weekends they want to encourage that. Now, why would a bank do this? Because those retailers in downtown make up a good share of their customers, and they want more business on the weekend. So they incentivize people to come down weekends by making it free. Another great idea I ran into was, if you spend enough, we'll give you the parking free. We found this in Newport on the Levee, which is just over the river from Cincinnati, Ohio. It is really a lifestyle retail center there, and they've got public parking there. And you can go in. Here's what they do. Notice the signs there say parking is $3. On weekends, they do a cool thing. When you drive in, they'll say, okay, it's $3, but if you spend $20 or more, show your receipts on the way out, and we won't charge you the $3. You know what people will do? They will go there. They will pay $15 for a movie for 2 people. They will find a way to spend the other $5 so they can get the $3 parking for free. It works. And you know what? The increase in retail spending more than offsets the loss in parking revenues. That's a great idea, something you can do. And here's the deal. Parking fees should always equal the value. So there is, and we're going to talk about parking rates and what to charge, but it should always be tied to the value. The greater the value, the more we're willing to pay for parking. So I want to take you to Walnut Creek, California. Walnut Creek is what they call the East Bay area. It's probably half an hour from San Francisco and about 20 minutes from downtown Oakland in the East Bay area. It is an upscale shopping and dining destination. It has a terrific downtown. They have kind of a traditional downtown, and then they've got another plaza area. And they do a couple of things. Number one is if you're on the street, it's 2 hours. And they even enforce it in the evening hours. But, you know, one thing that they're doing is, notice it says two-hour limits, and it's $1 per hour. They make it pretty easy. And what we're trying to get them to do is put next to it that says all-day parking next right. So now they also have some parking garages. And so it's $1 an hour up to a max of $3. And we think this is a great, great model to follow. 1 hour, $1 an hour, max $3. You know what this does? It incentivizes people to stay longer, because after the 3 hours, it's free. So why not stay longer? Take advantage of the free parking after that. It's a great way to get people to spend more time in your downtown, where they're not saying, geez, our rates are racking up. You know, some parking garages, they might say, well, it's $1 an hour, you know, or if you stay 4 hours, we'll give you a break. But, you know, this is a great way to incentivize it. And we thought that was a great example. And so, you know, it creates incentive, and it creates incentive for people to park in the parking garage. So what they do is, if you're going to pay for surface parking along the streets, you only get 2 hours, and you have to leave. If you park, and if you put on the top of the meters all-day parking next right, people are going to do that, and it's actually cheaper in the long run. And what's cool in Walnut Creek is when you come out of that parking garage, they show you a map of downtown, and notice all the telling you where the parking areas are. And so they make it really easy that right there in the parking garage you can find your way around. And they have another thing now. They have BART, which is Bay Area Rapid Transit, that goes to Walnut Creek. People get off of the BART right there. And by the way, BART is probably, a mile or two from downtown Walnut Creek. They have a free trolley that runs right from BART. When BART lands or stops, they can get off, hop right on the trolley, and it takes them all through downtown Walnut Creek, free. And it runs every 20 minutes. And I'll talk more about this in a little bit. The other thing that they do is make it convenient and easy. Every time somebody drives in the parking garage, it tells them how many public parking spaces are available. There's nothing more frustrating than going into a parking garage and finding it's full. Some parking garages will even tell you how many spaces are available on each floor. But the easier you make it, the more likely people will drive out of their way to a parking structure. And, you know, they even have brochures that tell you about getting around new downtown parking pay stations, you know, private parking garages. They make it easy once you're there. So, now remember what I said, it needs to equal the value. So if you think about Disney World, Magic Kingdom, the Epcot Center, if you think about any major attraction or any sports complex or even downtown hotels, you know, if you go to Disneyland, you pay $16 a day for parking. Then they hop on a tram, and by the way, they make sure that the trams stop every 5 minutes. The general rule before getting on a tram or trolley is no more than 15 minutes. So that's something you have to keep in mind. But, you know, we're willing to pay $16 a day. By the way, then you pay almost $100 a day just to go into Disney World or Disneyland. And so nothing's free. If you go to any major sports stadium, you'll pay anywhere from $10 to $30 for a 2-hour game. Or if you go to any downtown hotel where they have valet only or parking there, you'll find the average rate in an urban hotel is $20 a day. People pay it because it's worth it, and it's worth the convenience. So back to that, number one is parking does not have to be free. Number two, if you're going to charge for parking, make it easy and convenient. And there's all kinds of new technologies, and we're going to talk about it. This is Barrie, Ontario, a city that's about an hour north of Toronto. They have pay stations every block. They take credit cards. They take cash. You know, you can pay for the whole day up to 5 o'clock. And by the way, if you come at 2 o'clock, it won't charge you for more than 3 hours, even if you hit. So it always knows that it'll stop at 5 o'clock because after that it's free. And there you go. And so that's a way to make it work. One of the challenges we had in Barrie is look at this kiosk here. Now look at this one. It's totally different. This one doesn't take credit cards. So if you have pay parking, it needs to be consistent. Every machine should be the same and offer the same things. So we saw people in Barrie, they would come here. It does not take credit cards. So we have to go back to our car and find a place where it does take credit cards because we didn't bring the right amount of change. And so it must be consistent. Use one vendor. And by the way, this machine takes credit cards, and some do and some don't. That makes it frustrating. And by the way, notice the solar panel on that. That is very popular now. It means you can put these where it doesn't require power to the site. And so, even with privately owned public parking, make it easy. I'm going to go back down into Walnut Creek. This says private parking, pay public parking. Well, which is it? And by the way, look at all this. You know, I gave them a really bad time because here it is. Look at this. Stop it already. Private parking. All unauthorized vehicles will be subject to citation and towing. Here's North Main Tow. Here's the Walnut Creek Police. Then look at the other side. Private parking. Wells Fargo Bank. Customer parking while in bank only after bank closes. This is at the entrance to the parking lot. Are you going to stop on the street and spend 5 minutes reading all the rules and stuff? I didn't want to park there. And so I said, knock it off already. If this is public parking, is it public parking or private parking? You know? And so I said, okay, you need to do new signage that has no more than 8 words entering these lots. No more than 8 words. And I'm going to tell you what we said. And these signs that tell you all the rules is when you go to the meter, then you can tell them what the rules and regulations are. You need to make it easy and convenient. And you need to include the rates. Here they give you all the warnings, but they don't even tell you how much it is. So here's what they should write. This is what their lot should say. Private lot for public parking. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 words. Then say $2 for an hour. $5 gives you 4 hours, so there's incentive to stay longer. And then $8 all day. If that's what their sign says, you've made it convenient. We know it's privately owned. It's for public parking. We know the rates. We can make a decision. That's what you need to do. So when people play about parking, it's because you make it tough for them. And so, by the way, wayfinding is an absolute must. Every downtown should have a wayfinding, and priority number 1 is tell me where the parking is. These kinds of signs. Make it easy. And that's what you have to do. So number 2, if you're going to charge for parking, make it easy so that we have no problem paying for it. Number 3, public parking should never be a general fund revenue source. Okay, I know a lot of you are groaning. You're probably looking at each other and you're going, uh-oh. Revenue should always be returned to the district that generates the revenue. Parking is an economic development tool. So here you go. Let me say it again. It's economic development, just like sidewalks and downtown beautification. Parking is no different. And so it should never be considered a general fund revenue source. What's in it for the city is tax base. Retail sales and service taxes generated by the downtown. Property tax values. You know, and you keep your spending local by reducing leakage, by investing back into the district. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples of that. So here's the right way cities should address parking. First of all, you deduct the cost of enforcement, debt service, insurance, and maintenance of these things. That should always come right off the top. And then you might even set aside a 10% for a rainy day fund and capital improvements. Oh, we need paint, we need to do some upgrades, or we have snow removal or something. And then the remainder should be reinvested into the downtown district for improvements. So if you need me to be a heavy, by all means, use this workshop right here to illustrate that. So revenue should always be returned to the area that's generating the money. Number 4, dealing with employee parking, and this is the big one. You know, here's what I tell people all the time. We have 2-hour parking, and I say, why do you have 2-hour parking in your downtown? They say, because we cannot get our employees to park somewhere else. Here's the rationale for that. We cannot get our employees to park somewhere else, so we're going to do 2-hour parking. So what we're going to do is we're going to punish our customers. Why would you do that? First of all, if you want your employees to park somewhere else, this is a great reason why you should do pay parking. The closer you are, the more you have to pay. Walk a block or two, it's free or half price. Incentivize employees and even customers to park a little bit further away. So create incentives. I'll give you an example. This is Roseburg. This is in Southern Oregon. They did it wrong. Notice this map on the left. Notice where it says free parking. The core of their downtown is free, and then you pay if you go park out away. Nope, wrong, backwards. You should make you pay if you want it really close, and it's free if you don't mind walking a block or two. So reverse it, and they'll be doing it the right way. People will pay for convenience. So that's what you have to understand. Think airport parking garage. If you park right at the airport, you're going to pay 3 times more if you park off-site. That's what you have to do. So make it the most expensive, the closer it is, and then the further you get away, the less expensive it gets, right out to free. And you'll be doing it right. So there you go. When it comes to employee parking, it's a good rationale to actually have pay parking, because then there's incentive for them to walk the block or two. Now, number 5 is angle-in parking versus parallel parking. And I love this statistic. Angle-in parking increases spending by more than 20% and increases the number of parking spaces by a full third. You got that? Here's why. Nobody likes parallel parking. Nobody. It's a hassle. As a matter of fact, auto manufacturers are now figuring out ways where the car actually parks for you. But you know what's cool about angle-in parking? We can be driving down the street and say, we see a cool shop, well, pull in quick. And that angle-in parking is easy to do. Now, people say, well, it's not very safe when they back up. You know what? That's not true either. That's another myth, that angle-in parking is more dangerous than parallel parking. Not true at all. Because what happens is every car has reverse lights, and you know what it does? It slows traffic. And by the way, congestion is a downtown's best friend, and it doesn't create any more congestion than parallel parking. It's quicker to pull in and back out of a angle-in parking space than it is a parallel parking space. So this is Greenville, South Carolina. We went there once. I'm going to go back there again, and I want you to see something here. This is them in the 70s. Notice it's 4 lanes wide and parallel parking. That's it in the 70s. Look what they did in the 80s. They narrowed it down to 2 lanes and then had angle-in parking, plus they put these little bulb outs and street trees. That's it in the 80s. This is it 2 weeks ago. Wow. Notice the angle-in parking. Their downtown came to life. The street trees, the narrower streets, the angle-in parking, it worked. Oak Harbor, Washington. This is a smaller city. It's about 20,000, you know, and they employed one idea, which is, could we do angle-in on one side and parallel on the other, and then the next block it would switch, so your traffic kind of meanders through that. And but they did a cool thing, and here you can see before at the top and after. Now here's what they did. Notice in the top they have parallel parking on both sides of the street. Notice down below that it is one way. They made kind of a loop in their downtown, so it's kind of a circular pattern. And notice they now have wider sidewalks, they now have street trees, they have bulb outs, and they have angle in parking. You know what? They lost very little parking because they put in angle in parking, which allowed them to get way more spaces. And so it made all the difference in the world. Here's another one. Notice they have kind of parallel parking on both sides of the street. Now down below, it's all angle in parking. Notice in the background there, you can see the bulb outs, the beautification, the wide sidewalks, you know, all of those things. They've got directional signage there. Huge difference. Here's another one. Notice the top, parallel parking both sides. And now notice the bottom, same spot, wider sidewalks, angle in parking on one side. And by the way, their retail sales are blossoming. Their whole downtown is coming to life making these changes. It works every single time. Number 6, parking limits. Here's the thing. Any pedestrian-friendly or popular downtown, the average person will spend 4 hours. Got that? 4 hours. So here's what I tell you. 2-hour parking dramatically reduces spending and repeat visits. Your customer is always your first priority, not forcing your workers to park somewhere else. Think about your customers first and then incentivize it for employees to park somewhere else. So your downtown should have 4-hour parking. Now, that doesn't mean I am totally against 2-hour parking. As long as everywhere that you have a 2-hour parking sign, you can say all day parking next right or 4-hour parking next right. And then you do it okay. But if you just say 2-hour parking and we don't know that you have any longer parking, you're going to kill your downtown. So there you go. Let me put that in bold print one more time. 2-hour parking is a good way to kill a downtown. So I'm going to take you to Oxnard, California. Oxnard is on the coast between Malibu and Ventura and Santa Barbara. It's a beautiful downtown. Now, you know, I was working there, and they have this beautiful theater downtown, and right next, it's a movie theater, and right next to it is all kinds of restaurants. They had 2-hour parking, even in the evening hours. You know what happens is somebody wants to come to a movie. The movie is 2 hours all by itself, and if they want dining in a movie, dining in culture, dining in shopping, the average person will spend 4 hours. So I was there, and people came in. We did this open house. People came in and said, you know, I used to come downtown Oxnard. I'd come down for a dining and a movie, and I had 2-hour parking limits, and I was getting tickets. And you know what? When somebody gets a ticket, even though they are wrong, they write you off. And we had dozens of people come into our open house and say, we now drive the 6 miles to Ventura where they have 4-hour parking. Ouch. And by the way, look at that in downtown Ventura. Parking all day, straight, left, right. See, they said 2-hour parking here, but notice the sign at the top? They tell you everywhere where it says 2-hour parking, they tell you where the all-day parking is. If they want to make it perfect, they would give you one direction. Now, I'm going to talk more about that instead of all 3 directions. And they would get rid of this no reparking on either side of the same block within 4 hours of initial parking. I mean, come on, give me a break. You know, this is why people get so frustrated with parking. But they had the right idea. So once again, and by the way, we saw a town where look at this, no parking truck or RV in this block, and that was in every block. You know what that told people? If you have an RV, you're not allowed to park in our downtown. So this is the answer. 4-hour parking, 6 a.m. to 5 p.m., and after that it's free, and it's all night. That's what you need to do. So there you go, 4-hour parking until 5 o'clock. And by the way, here's something you need to know. 70% of all consumer bricks and mortar spending now takes place after 6 p.m. Incentivize people to come downtown after 6 p.m. for dining, entertainment, culture, and shopping. So if you have signs like this, there's no reason why you couldn't put all-day parking next left or next right. That's what you need to do. So there you go. Once again, tell me where I can find it. And once again, back to that sign in Ventura, but instead of giving me I still look, somebody stuck a sticker over it, but give me an arrow one direction. By the way, here's a cool idea, another great idea. This is in Spokane, Washington. They did a cool thing where they had 2-hour parking downtown and people were getting tickets and writing them off. So they did a cool program. It says, a friend of mine got this ticket. While you're enjoying incredible shopping, world-class entertainment, the region's best dining or professional service, your parking meter expired. Don't worry, this courtesy parking ticket extended your parking privilege for an extra hour, sometimes they'll write 2 hours in there, allowing you to continue to enjoy your visit to downtown Spokane. With it, they tell you where all the all-day parking is. Here's what they do. Their parking enforcement officers have handheld devices. They will type in your license plate number, and if you've already been given one of these, you're probably going to get a ticket the second time. But if you're a first timer, you're a visitor, you're from out of the area, they have the courtesy to tell you, you know what? We know you extend your parking privileges. We're going to go ahead and extend it. And here's what's cool. Their Convention and Visitors Bureau reimbursed the city for that 50 cents an hour or whatever that revenue was. I wish they wouldn't have to do that, but it's a great idea to make people feel good that, gee, this city does care about me. And then what they're doing is telling you, here's where you can do it, how you can do it. I think that is just a great, cool program. So, number 6 is parking limits. 4 hours, and if you do 2 hours, do 2 hours right in your core district, and everywhere where it says 2 hours, you say 4 hours, maybe a block away, and all day, maybe 2 blocks away. That way, the further away you park, the cheaper it gets and the longer you can park. So, but generally speaking, you should have 4 hours in your downtown. Number 7, losing parking for plazas and cafe dining. I hear about this all the time, and we did a whole video just on plazas and everything. But I want to give you a couple examples, and I'm going to do this pretty quickly. This is in downtown Rapid City, South Dakota. And notice there's a parking garage in the background, and notice there's a parking spaces right there. There's 60 parking spaces. You know what they did? They got rid of those 60 parking spaces, and this is the same spot. And they did put a 3rd story on the parking garage, but did not make up the 60 spaces because the first floor of the parking garage is full of restaurants, restrooms, and other things. So they lost about 40 parking spaces, and they turned it into a plaza, and you know what? Downtown Rapid City is enormously successful. So losing some parking for plaza areas and cafe dining does not create a problem. That is a myth that I'm busting right now. Waterloo, Ontario. Look at this. This is a mall. You can see the bank there. You can see shops going into the mall. There's Shoppers Drug Mart. Look at this. Is before. This is after. You know what? Their retail sales went up, not down. And they did not make up that parking somewhere else. They got rid of the parking. But here's the scoop. If it's worth it, we will walk a block or 2. Aha. Remember? I'm going to say that one more time. If you are worth it, we will walk a block or 2 or even 3. The more you're worth the walk, the further people are willing to park away. That is the answer. This is Mint Plaza in San Francisco. This is it before. And by the way, this turned into kind of a blighted area, a low-income area, and investor came in and started buying up all these buildings and turned them into high-end condo. You know what he did? The developer went to the city and said, I'd like to turn this into no vehicles and turn it into plaza. He actually paid for development of the plaza. And you know what? It's incredible, and now it's one of the highest rent districts in downtown San Francisco. How cool is that? Here's another one. This is the East Village Arts District in Long Beach, California. And this was a parking spot. They got rid of 5 or 6 parking spaces there. They spent $6,000 and used, I think it was 30 gallons of paint. And they put this there. And with that $6,000, they bought all these tables and chairs and some umbrellas. They invite food trucks in. They have people speaking, singing, and everything. It was just a temporary little thing. They lost those parking spaces. Guess what? It's so popular, it's still there. People love it. You know, people were willing to lose that 5 parking spaces. Nelson, British Columbia, you know, one of my favorite towns. They did a cool thing. I took this in October when they're getting ready to take these things down. But what's really cool is they will lose parking spaces to allow restaurants to put decks up there. And by the way, they take them down in the winter for snow removal. They are in a mountain location. I'm working on getting some summertime photos of Nelson with these. But you know what? And so at first, merchants complain, oh my gosh, we're losing, we need that parking. That's a fallacy. It's a myth. So they allow restaurants to do that. This is Wolfville, Nova Scotia. These are all seasonal. In this case, you dine next to the shop and then they route pedestrians around it. Here's another one in Wolfville, Nova Scotia. And all of these are there for probably 6 to 7 months of the year. And they lose a couple parking spaces, but you know what? No problem. It's worth walking a block for. These are the things that you can do. You know, finally, I'll give you one more. This is Barrie, Ontario. They now have 6 or 7 restaurants that actually created these. Yes, the merchants scream bloody murder. They're not screaming now because now people are saying, hey, it's worth parking a block away. Yeah, we'll lose a few spaces, but it's worth it. And notice they make it really easy to walk around or even wheelchair access around it. You know, and there it is. It's even beautification. This stuff works. And here you go. We could not find one single case where there was a negative impact due to the loss of parking in a downtown core area in exchange for program plazas or cafe dining. Not one single one. And number 8, what to do with retailers that complain? I want you to ask them this one question. Are you telling me that your store is not worth walking a block for? If that doesn't silence them, I don't know what will. And by the way, if you're a furniture store, you can always do a loading zone there, you know, a 20-minute zone or whatever. You know, and while, you know, I took this picture in Old Strathcona. By the way, this business did not say that. I just used them as an example. But that's what you can do. And in Old Strathcona, which is a district in Edmonton, Alberta, if you want public parking, it's 2 blocks away. And look at this. We don't even have sidewalks here. We got roots of trees coming out. People are willing to walk the 2 blocks because their downtown, their area is so great. You know, it is packed. It is full of life. It is the nightlife place. And, you know, people will walk those 2 blocks, or they will ride their bikes, or they will walk even further. And remember, this is in Edmonton. They have severe winters. And even in the winter, people don't mind walking those couple of blocks. So once more, if somebody says, well, you're taking away parking from me and I need that parking in front of my store, you know, that's what you ask them. Is your store not worth working a block for? And if it isn't worth walking a block for, then they have some work to do. So, number 9, funding parking structures. We could do a whole webinar on this, but there are some things that cities have done. Sometimes people will build a parking structure and they will actually sell parking spaces or even a floor to local businesses and corporations. We call them condo parking spaces. Okay, we want to buy, you know, 100 spaces in this parking garage. You can do things like that to help fund it. You can also do sponsorships. You know, when people come into parking garages, they can't remember what color or what floor. They don't remember colors and numbers, but they do remember sponsors. Oh, I parked on the McDonald's floor. Oh, I parked on the Coca-Cola floor. Oh, I parked on the Walgreens floor. And you know what you do is, what they do is inside a parking garage is all concrete. You can have them paint murals of McDonald's, Ronald McDonald, or Coca-Cola, and it's in the parking garage. You don't see it from outside, and you could have them do that. We remember brands more than we remember numbers and colors. And by the way, they pay to have those murals inside there. They are sponsoring it. So they're helping pay the debt service. And by the way, you can still charge for parking. It's a way to help offset the cost. You know, it's like selling naming rights to stadiums. You're selling naming rights to the floors. And of course, pay parking is a great way to fund a parking garage. It's a revenue stream, so you can actually issue revenue bonds. Number 4, you can develop mitigation, creating shared parking by local hotel and even places like churches. Churches usually have their parking is on Sunday. Well, what about during the week? You could have shared space. And so that helps reduce the cost because they're all helping pay for shared parking space. And then finally, municipal bonds are very, very popular. And sometimes we see business improvement districts or business improvement associations funding parking, and we think that's a last resort. We do not think that's the right way to do it because we want BIAs or BIDs to spend their money on product so that it is worth walking a block or two for. That's your goal, is to make the product so good that we will easily walk a block or two from parking structures that are outside of the core area. And so, by the way, if you want to build parking structures, you can plan on about $20,000 per space for land and construction. That's a general rule of thumb. Surface parking lots can cost $6,000 per space by the time you buy the land and convert it and put in meters and those things. So, number 10, I want to quickly go over some new parking technologies. And for you that do pay parking, you have 3 choices. You can add coin-operated meters. You can do pay by smartphone. And one of them is Passport, and I'm going to tell you about that in a second. You can use a kiosk, and you can pay by cash or credit card. And so kiosks like this cost between $7,000 and $12,000 a piece. And you can even get some with solar panels on them. And you know, there's ParkOn does it, parkon.us. You can just pause it and then write some of these things down. But these are 3 companies that actually create these kiosks. You can look them up, and it gives you a general rule of thumb. And let me talk about the future in pay parking. Pay by phone. You can reload your meter by phone, and there are several companies that do this. One is Pay by Phone, and here it is right here. And you can see here's the app. And I'm going to give you a case history about how all this works. You know, here's what Pay by Phone does. And they say your parking zone is located on the meter, and you can download an app, and you can pay by phone. It's really a cool thing that you can do. And by the way, Pay by Phone actually will provide you even with the signs. There's no cost to you. And so here's another one. Park Mobile does this. And how these things work, you know, you call the number posted on the signs, you respond to the prompts, you wait and hear that parking that has started, and you can extend it anytime by phone. And rather than go into a lot of detail, I will show you an example. And so you confirm and pay. You know, you receive a text message alert that when parking is almost up. Passport Parking. So they're another company. Another one is Pango. You know, another one is Park Mobile. And so there's all different kinds of pay by phone, pay by smartphone, different ones that you can get. Here are the main choices that we were able to find. Passport Parking, it's based out of the U.S. Pango, which is based out of Israel, but it is available in North America. Pay by Phone is a Canadian company. Park Mobile is another USA company. The benefit to the city is there's no cost. And parking enforcement, they do need to have web-capable devices so they know whether somebody has paid for that space or not. And customers pay a convenience fee, just like at an ATM. And customers are willing to do it. It's convenient. We don't have to walk around with a pocket full of change. We can stand right in front of our mirror. We don't even have to go to a kiosk. And they provide the stickers and apply them to your post. I'll show you that. And cities that have done this have seen a 20% increase in their revenues within 90 days. Wow, that's pretty cool. Benefit to the customer, they don't have to feed the meter. They get a 15-minute text reminder that says, you know, by the way, do you want to reload your meter if there's still available time? And it'll tell you, uh-oh, your parking meter's about to expire. It's a free mobile app. And you can even include opt-in local information. You can even say, here's where I parked. It'll say, okay, within 1 block of you, here's shops. How cool is that? It's all blended into the experience. And you only pay for the time you actually are parked. You know, ParkX does this. They even have, see that little device there? You can actually get one of these devices for people that continue, like for employees, where they hang that in their window. You know, Easy Park is the solution that ParkX uses. And so you can even, there's apps like ParkMe, which really is just telling you where available parking spaces are. So I was in Wisconsin Dells. There's 2 communities there. The total population is 6,000. So it's 2 communities, each with about 3,000. Their brand is, they are the water park capital of the world. They have about 18 huge indoor and outdoor water parks in Wisconsin Dells. When you go there, they had these meters. These meters have been there for years. You have 3 choices. You can use the coin-operated meter. There it is. This one has a 4-hour time limit. Notice that. You can pay by phone. Notice the sticker on the meter. Or you can use a kiosk. So there is no reason why somebody will be inconvenienced. They have all 3 options. And so here's what they did. They did it with Passport, and Passport came out and put that little sticker on the meter. And so here's what they did. And so they provided all the stickers, and notice they even provide that one that says Zone 110, Space 648. They provide it all. They come into your town. They actually do that. And so there's a small user fee. I think I paid 35 cents extra, but you know what? I didn't have to worry about change. You know, it was just really easy. The app was free, and you can also call. If you say, well, I have a flip phone, you can call that number there. It's a local number, and say, I'm in zone 110, space 648, and they'll get your credit card information and say, how long would you like to park? How cool is that? They make it convenient. So here, this is my first time experience. First thing I did is I got out of my car, I scanned the QR code. Within 20 seconds, it popped up the app. And it said, do you want to turn on location services? And it said, yes. And it says, oh, you're in downtown Wisconsin Dells. Okay. And then it said, give yourself a username and a password. So I typed in Roger Brooks, and I gave myself a password. And then it said, what's the zone number? I said 110. What's the space number? 646. And then it said, okay, give me a credit card number. So I input a credit card number, which it keeps on file. And then it said, how long would you like to stay? You want to pay $1 for 1 hour? You want to pay $2 for 2 hours? Or would you like to pay $3 for 4 hours? You know, and I said, well, I'll just do 2 hours. And then because it's going to text me if I need to load in more time. And then it said, by the way, the meter is not going to all of a sudden pop up with the hours. It says the meter's not going to show any time, but we know you paid for parking. Aha. And 15 minutes before it's going to expire, it'll say, do you want to reload the meter from wherever you're at? You know, at a restaurant 3 blocks away? Or do you want to just get back to your car? And there you go. How cool is that? The whole thing took me less than 3 minutes. The very next day, I did the very same thing. It took me 20 seconds. I parked in it, opened up the app, typed in the zone, the space number, and boom, the time. And most lots have 3 choices, you know. And if you don't have a phone, you don't have the cash, you can use a credit card. Yeah, you might have to walk, you know, over to where the kiosk is. And this one has a solar panel because there wasn't power right there, you know. And in new lots, what they did is these are new lots where they didn't even bother putting in parking meters. So in this case, what they did is I identified the zone number and the parking space number. And so if you don't have a phone, they have just the kiosk that you can use, or these. It is so cool and so much less expensive and 0 maintenance. So notice where it is. Enforced 8 to 9 p.m. all days, including, you know, pay at the pay station, or you can pay by using your phone. There's the sticker again. I opened the app. I typed in space 184, and I was instantly done. 4 hours, $2.35, including that 35-cent user fee. Done. Cool, the future. And there you go. So, you know, that's how easy it is. There you go, 4 hours. You know, less maintenance, faster, and no cost to you, the city. And so, by the way, I want to talk about this. Never, ever show multiple directions on parking wayfinding sign, ever. I want you to turn right. Always get them to turn right. Don't give me multiple choices, make it easy. So if I'm going one direction, I turn right. If I'm coming the direction, I can turn right. And make it easy. Keep people turning right if at all possible. This is easy to do. By the way, Wisconsin Dells, that small town, generates $400,000 a year in parking fees. Their maintenance, enforcement, everything is about $150,000, and that gross margin gets reinvested back into their downtown. So the final word, parking structures, if you had 300 spaces, would cost about $6 million to build. What else could you do with $6 million that would pull people into downtown with the same parking you have today? So I'm not saying that you shouldn't do parking structures, but say if we were going to spend $6 million for 300 parking space garage, could we invest that in another way that would make us worth walking 3 blocks for? You know, and once again, I'm not saying you don't do it, but I want you to think about how you invest that money. And finally, back in Walnut Creek trolley system, once you get off BART, they have all these maps. They have this little trolley. It's free. They spend $200,000 a year. And you know what? They could offset that with $100,000 in onboard marketing. And it requires their downtown to not have as many parking spaces. So don't rely on this ITE manual, which is the Institute of Transportation Engineers, because you know, that says, well, for every retail, you need to have so many parking spaces per square foot, or for every hotel or everything. Don't rely on that. Think about alternatives. I'd rather see you, and in Walnut Creek, they could sell advertising up there. They could sell advertising up there, you know, because that $200,000 they spend a year, or net $100,000 they spend on a trolley system, you know what? That would free up parking spaces that could turn into tax base. You want tax base. Because surface parking, you know, could be turned into revenues. And by the way, parking, there is no one-size-fits-all solution. It is not a standalone amenity. You need to include bike racks, transit options, all of these different things, all weigh in. And so there you go. Courthouse Square, office complexes, every place is different. And do not get caught up in the uninformed merchant hype. Don't do it. Thank you so much for watching this video. This is a great resource when you're addressing parking issues. So thank you so much and have a great day.